In case you weren't aware, there's a huge parade of planets passing through Capricorn as we speak, making their way on over through to Aquarius later on this month. As if starting off on a number 1 year here in 2026 wasn't enough, January's overall astrology is a sequence we are really going to want to watch out for and commit to memory. This is going to be one banger of a new year. Hey there, I'm Howie, and if you're new here, then that makes two of us, because so am I. Welcome to my channel, and in today's video, we're just going to be having a chit-chat over some astrology that's happening this month, specifically the stellium that's taking place in the sign of Capricorn. Let's dive in. This planetary parade started at the very tail end of 2025 on December 24th, when the Sun entered engagement range with the planet Mars in the sign of Capricorn. Venus has been trailing ever so slightly behind him, and on January 1st, we saw Mercury enter the fray. However, because of the significance of this triple conjunction happening this week, I'm only going to be focusing on those first three planets for the purposes of this video. So, Venus, the Sun, and Mars. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the sky bit by bit. So to start things off, on Tuesday, January 6th, we are going to see Venus in a cazimi with the Sun. A cazimi is essentially anytime a planet enters the same degree as the Sun in the sky. Essentially, the planet is removing themselves from under his intense beams, where they are overshadowed, overpowered, and burnt up, and entering into the eye of the storm, so to speak. They get to sit upon the Sun's throne. And a cazimi, in the astrological language, has been considered a very fortuitous aspect. Old karma is being burnt away, and the planet is being reborn, rejuvenated, and revitalized. So as Venus pulls away from the Sun over the next few days, she will be entering into her evening star phase, which is her most feminine phase. She is going to be refreshed, renewed, fully rejuvenated, and essentially purified. Now, when we talk about conjunctions in general, we are essentially taking the topics and significations of two planets or more and combining them to form one cohesive story. So when we take the significations of the Sun, who as a central figure in the astrological language can represent leaders, authority, fatherly figures, centrality, eternal truth, the beauty of eternal truth, intellectuality, and even our life direction and life purpose, we combine that with the significations of Venus for a story about where our life is going insofar as how we love, how we want to be loved, how we connect, how we want to connect with people, how we want to create, what we want to create, what do we want to imagine and birth into the world. Venus is all about aesthetics, pleasure, joy, harmony, bringing things together in a communal and loving fashion. In the sign of Capricorn, which is a feminine earth sign, we can see this manifest as something very sensual, even sexual. And we'll touch more on this when we get to the planet Mars, who is actually exalted in the sign of Capricorn. So our plot lines, depending on where Capricorn sits in your chart, could be taking a hard left towards redefining what love, sensuality, and pleasure really means to you. When we look at these two planets in the sign of Capricorn, which is the sign of the sea goat, we see a cardinal sign that has a double-bodied symbol representing it, one that is half man and half creature. So there is a raw sense of primal instinct and sexuality tied in with this sign, but there's also a sense of detachment from the physical and tangible. It can go one of two ways. Generally, in a positive light, Capricorn is very good at detaching itself from the tangible and materialistic. Because it is a Saturnian sign, and Saturn tends to identify the struggles that come along with ascending a great peak, a great mountainous endeavor, that ascension towards the sky, towards eternal truth, towards spirituality, can be a signification of Capricorn. Now, of course, on the shadow side, there is the risk of just tumbling down that mountain back to reality, back to the material, and becoming so engrossed and enthralled with it that it becomes a detriment. And this is something we're going to need to watch out for later on in the week, when Venus moves out of that cazimi with the Sun and conjoins Mars next. So while this isn't a cazimi, because that is a term reserved for planets that conjoin the sun. We can still see Venus and Mars coming together on the same degree of Capricorn as a sort of resetting of their own cycle. And Venus and Mars are known as the cosmic lovers in the astrological language. You have Venus with the softer, more harmonizing, sensual sort of love, and then you have Mars with that hard, rough, primal, aggressive sort of passion. When these two come together, particularly in Mars's sign, Capricorn, we're going to see a redefining of what makes us feel good. We're going to see a redefining of what drives us, what impassions and lights our fire. A conjunction like this in Capricorn can lead to a very seductive and very sexy time. Now, let's not forget that Mars is also a planet of separation and severance. We just had a Venus Cazimi, which means her old patterns and her old karma have burnt away. That martial presence might just continue to cut and sever away what holds us back from attaining our truest ambitions, whatever we might be redefining those at this time. Harkening back to what I said earlier in the video, let's not forget the shadow side of Capricorn, where we have our two cosmic lovers coming together as one for a brief moment in the sky. Let's make sure we don't completely lose ourselves and become enthralled with that new person, that new hobby, that new habit, that new vice. A little hedonism can go a long way, and I feel like never really hurt anybody, but let's not lose ourselves and our spiritual well-being in those hedonistic pursuits. And that brings us to the final part of this triple conjunction in Capricorn and another general signification of this sign, which is spirituality. Of course, any sign has the potential to be spiritual. It really all depends on how the planets are configured and speaking to one another in your birth chart. When we go back to the story of Saturn and why he is domiciled in Capricorn, we again look to the great mountain that ascends to the sky. So Capricorn does have a tendency to care about its spiritual well-being. It is the sign that marks the shortest day, the longest night, and the dead cold of winter. There is no material to be had. There are no goods and resources to be relied upon. All we have is ourselves, our soul at this time. And this is all metaphorical, of course. So Capricorn can turn inwards and bring a focus to our spiritual well-being. This could quite literally be a spiritual awakening for some folks, or a spiritual rebirth if you already have your own practice. Now, while this triple conjunction is going to be fairly strong through the 7th and the 8th, we aren't going to see another exact conjunction until the 9th. Now, as we mentioned with Venus, where old karma gets burnt away, now we're seeing karma surrounding leadership, individuality, ambition, aggression, anger, and passion being burnt away, initiating a new phase in that cycle in our charts. So this could be a very constructive time to get real with ourselves, give ourselves a reality check. As I mentioned earlier, we are probably going to be examining and redefining our desires and ambitions, but now we're also going to be redefining what leadership looks like and what type of leadership we want to see around us. Because we have this co-present Venus, we might see a particularly strong emphasis on feminine leadership. Now, this could be emphasis on the women around you, whether it is promotions of the women around you, accolades that they receive, recognition that they receive, or this could be you, if you identify as a woman, being raised up and pushed into a leadership role. Honestly, if you've never experienced a leadership role, this transit might turn that completely on its head, and you might actually be pushed into this new experience. Remember, we're talking about two Kazimis in a cardinal earth sign. This is a time of initiation. This is a time of new things happening. Another thing that I want to emphasize is Mars's ability to sever or separate. So we're going to be getting very, very clear on any new ambitions, any new passions that we discover at this time. We're going to be getting clear on what we need out of our leaders and what we need out of ourselves as leaders. We have the sun's signification of self-identity and Mars's leadership significations, but we also can't forget that across the chart, over in Cancer, we have Jupiter exalted, but in retrograde. Now, retrograde in general tends to mean that a planet struggles to express itself in its typical fashion. It may also ask us to revisit, review, and re-examine its topics as they pertain to our lives and our birth charts. When it comes to Jupiter stationing retrograde and moving through that retrogradation can force us to call into question our own personal beliefs and even challenge and change them. This could be beliefs surrounding authenticity in particular, whether that is our own authenticity and how we express that to the greater public, or how much we value authenticity in other people, or even how skilled we are at separating our own personal projections onto someone else and our ability to really see people for who they actually are. This opposition emphasizes Mars's ability to sever and separate, because that is essentially what an opposition is in astrology. It is taking two planets and their significations and really pulling them apart like a tug of war, so that you are forced to see two very distinct sides or components to one situation or issue. Now, because it's Cancer involved in this opposition, this can really challenge our sense of safety and security. Cancer is a sign of nostalgia, of memory, of wanting to come back to source, whether that is quite literally the mother, the matriarchal figure in your life, or simply just a nostalgic feeling of comfort that you hang on to. Now we have Mars on the opposite end of things with the Sun and Venus asking us to redefine what that sense of connection to our past actually is. There's going to be a lot of reflection going on this week with these particular transits all coming together and intermingling. So to wrap up this video and quickly summarize everything I've talked about, this upcoming week is going to be seeing a lot of us challenge our own personal beliefs surrounding self-identity and authenticity, leadership, personal and outwards, love, connection, passion, sensuality, and what drives our plotline. What is the next phase of our life direction? I'm looking forward to seeing how this is all going to play out, and I'll have plenty more to talk about because January is not over yet. Once this stellium exits Capricorn and enters Aquarius, we have a whole new can of worms to talk about. So on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. It was a pleasure speaking to the astrological phenomena that'll be happening this week, and I cannot wait for the next video. See you soon, take care of yourselves and each other.